believe how much the Batman movies have evolved over the years? From the campy styles of the 1960s to the dark, brooding, complex iterations we've seen today, the Batman film saga has seen more changes and transformations than the city of Gotham itself. It all started with Batman the movie in 1966, starring Adam West and Burt Ward. This film came directly from the television series that was taking place during that time period. The film is often remembered for its over the top humor, colorful villains, and a Batman who was more cheeky than brooding. It was a totally different Batman than you would expect today. It took on a more fun, playful style of superhero with the over the top comic antics like big pals, bangs, and booms being shown on the screen when Batman and Robin would get into fights. Overall, this film showed that superheroes could have success in movie form, and it would even turn a profit, making the idea of maybe potentially more Batman movies down the line seem more plausible. But changing audiences would mean a different Batman would be needed in the future. Which leads us to our next Batman. Fast forward to the 1980s, and the landscape of superhero films was about to change forever. Enter Tim Burton and Michael Keaton. Burton's vision of Batman in 1989 was a complete departure from the campy, lighthearted tone of the 1960s. His take was a much darker, more gothic style with an atmosphere that was more foreboding. Michael Keaton, who was previously known for his comedic roles, donned the cape and Batman look, and many were skeptical at first how Keaton's portrayal of Batman and Bruce Wayne would make up this film. However, Keaton would completely change the character of Batman forever. Burton's film wasn't just a critical success, it would gross over $400 million worldwide and redefined what a superhero movie should be. The film would have so much success that in 1992, Batman Returns would premiere, once again showcasing the mind of Tim Burton and the style of Michael Keaton. Adding to the supporting cast of Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer, this would completely change how he looked at superhero movies and how the big screen could really showcase how comic book heroes could be. Some would even say Batman Returns took on an even darker tone with more grotesque characters like that of Danny DeVito's Penguin. It was way over the top and brought in a new style that we hadn't seen before in these types of movies. This movie was also a huge success, though not as much as the original. It would still gross over $200 million in the box office. This film would also be the last time Tim Burton and Michael Keaton worked together on a Batman film. Keaton would give up the Batman suit until 2023's Flash film, and Burton would depart from the comic book world when his movie about Superman would not get produced. But of course, this wasn't the end of Batman in the 90s. After Burton's departure, Joel Schumacher would take the reins for the next two Batman films. Batman Forever would come out in 1995 and Batman and Robin in 1997. These films took a decidedly more flamboyant and campy approach to the characters. This was a stark contrast to Burton's grim interpretation. Batman Forever would star the late Val Kilmer as the Caped Crusader, and he brought a certain level of color back to Gotham. It was flashy, action-packed, and filled with an array of colorful villains, including the most famous Jim Carrey as the Riddler and Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. These two really brought to life the villains from the Batman comics. This would be a shocker of a success, grossing over $300 million in the box office. But not only that, it would build upon the Batman universe. It brought in new villains, like we mentioned, Two-Face and the Riddler, but it also would bring about Robin and a love interest for Batman. This brought more of a human approach to the character and made him seem more realistic as he fought these over-the-top villains. All of these new characters would help set the scene for the following film, Batman and Robin, which would become next in this series of movies. However, one thing that set these two films apart from the other ones that starred Michael Keaton was the fact that Val Kilmer would not return as Batman in Batman and Robin, which would set up for what would be known as the Warner Brothers issue in the future, and the DC issue of having too many people playing Batman. The next Batman, the Batman and Robin film, would be George Clooney, which was a very different style of Batman than Val Kilmer played. Val Kilmer didn't want to play Batman as he felt alienated in the role, and that Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones really took the stage in the Batman films, and Kilmer felt his acting was being underappreciated in this role. The Batman and Robin film has become infamous with DC fans over the decades. And if you grew up in the 90s, this is probably the film you remember the most. With George Clooney playing a more lighthearted Bruce Wayne, it was designed to appeal to a younger audience, being more visually stirring and bringing more over the top acting. This is most memorable for the role of Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze and Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy. This was a very unique and different style of film. Though it would have success in the box office, it would not create the appeal as the other ones did prior. The series would be revitalized in the early 2000s thanks to Christopher Nolan after a rejected Batman origin story reboot that Josh Whedon pitched in December 2002. Warner Brothers turned to Nolan and David Goyer to provide a new, grounded approach to the characters. Their goal was to make Batman Begins a darker, more realistic, and emotionally appealing film. They wanted to bring more life to the character. They wanted to set him apart and they wanted to make him more human, as Bruce Wayne was a normal, just billionaire type of person. He was not a person with superpowers, and this is where they really wanted to set him apart. They wanted to give him an identity and they wanted to make him a human rather than the over the top acting that was seen prior. Christian Bale would take over as Batman in the 2005 Batman Begins film. His portrayal was seen as one of the most complex and unique that had been seen before. This also introduced new villains to the Batman world that had not been seen in prior movies, like that of Scarecrow. This would lead to a series of 3 films that also included The Dark Knight, which many say is the greatest Batman film of all time, which starred Christian Bale playing Batman once again, and Heath Ledger playing the Joker, which has been seen as the best Joker performance in the history and one of the best supervillain performances of all time. Ledger's Joker was one that was complete and utter chaos, and Ledger really took on the character. It was one of the greatest performances in superhero movie history. It would also reintroduce Two-Face, or aka Harvey Dent, adding a more cynical and realistic approach to how the character became the way he did. 2012 would mark the end of the Bale and Nolan partnership in the Dark Knight movies. With The Dark Knight Rises ending the series of movies, the trilogy would come to an end. Tom Hardy's Bane was one of the most memorable characters from this film and added even more depth to the supervillains. Anne Hathaway would be introduced as Catwoman, a character who had a unique relationship with Batman. To this day, the Bane character is still quoted. What made this film successful, and what many see as the most successful Batman film series of all time, was the fact that they didn't lose Christian Bale throughout, and that the style and characters stayed the same. Throughout the film series, they all matched the same style and level that you would expect from a Batman movie, and that's what truly made them unique. After this successful trilogy, the Batman character would once again take a hiatus. This would be until the DC Universe would reintroduce him in the role of Batman vs. Superman. This would be portrayed by Ben Affleck on the opposite side of Henry Cavill, who would be playing Superman and was the well-established Superman character during this time period. This would take on a more darker, more complex role of Batman, and Ben Affleck would really have his work cut out to be more of the Frank Miller Batman that was expected. Affleck would once again don the suit for the more complex Justice League movie to follow, where it reintroduced the DC characters together, fighting as one. In 2023, though it was seen as a flop, the Flash movie really brought together the Batman characters, bringing George Clooney, Michael Keaton, and Ben Affleck all into the same world, making it more apparent and making fans aware that Batman had been played by multiple different characters over the decades. With James Gunn taking over as head of creative at DC, there is now an expectation that Batman will be revived and brought into a new light. Many are expecting this to be the return of Batman to his greatness of former Batmans. What are your thoughts? One of the biggest issues that Warner Brothers has always faced is the fact that Batman's been played by multiple characters and they couldn't get one to be standard throughout. Do you think this has been one of their biggest issues? The Marvel Cinematic Universe has had success keeping the same characters over the years for a consistent film run. Could this be what's really set Batman apart, making it struggle more than the other superhero movies, specifically in the Marvel Universe? Let us know in the comments below. We would love to hear from all of you. Thank you so much for watching.